Artem MMA Analysis here, and if you guys don't know already, now you know I love Dana White's Contender Series. I cannot wait to make predictions on these fights. The first one that we've got of the night is James Barnes versus Pedro Falcao. I hope that I pronounced his name right there, but these guys are both very, very high level grapplers. We've got Pedro Falcao, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. James Barnes, black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And to talk about James Barnes, he may be the oldest contender on Dana White's Contender Series history. He's 39 years old. Of his 14 wins, he has 11 by submission. He's got world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He holds a black belt and has competed in a couple of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments as stated on his SJJIF profile there. He holds a win over Matt Betzold, who actually only has one leg, so I've got to give a lot of respect to Matt for fighting him, but he also holds a decent win over the Bellator and UFC veteran Albert Morales, which is the fight that I'm actually showing you guys right now. He's got the ground credentials, so he does look to take the fight to the ground as early as he possibly can, so he can utilize his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or his ground and pound. He does actually like to do a little bit of ground and pound as well up against the cage. From what I saw on the feet, he holds a very high guard with his hands, and he doesn't necessarily throw many kicks. He's definitely more of a boxing-orientated stand-up fighter, just from what I saw anyway. And I will get back to this because I can't show any Pedro Falcao footage, because the footage that I found was on Fight Pass, so I'm not too keen on getting like a copyright strike or anything for that, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. But Pedro Falcao, black belt in his own right on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He fights out of Nova União as well, which is a very respected gym. So I'm going to be playing some James Barnes footage, but I'm going to be talking about his opponent, Pedro Falcao, in this one here. So he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he fights out of Nova União. Notable fighters in that gym are Jose Aldo, Muslim Salikov, Mateus Nicolau, and Renan Barão. Despite his high-level ground game, Pedro actually holds 5 wins by knockout. I think he's got, from memory, 4 wins by submission, one of the two. And to be fair, I actually did have a pretty hard time trying to find Pedro's most recent fights, but there are a few of his older fights on UFC Fight Pass, which unfortunately I can't show you. On the feet, Pedro has a pretty crisp left hook, and he's got a powerful overhand right, which knocked out Wanderson da Silva in less than a minute actually. And he seems to utilize a lot more of a boxing approach on the feet as well, but he does throw some low kicks. And similarly to his opponents, James Barnes, he does look for a takedown pretty early in each round so he can get his control and ground and pound and utilize that black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. This matchup, I would say, both guys are pretty similar. Both guys have got their black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Both guys look to keep the fight on the ground. Out of the two, I would say that Pedro is a lot more comfortable on the feet than James. I would say that James is probably more the guy that does not want to have the fight on the feet at all out of the two. And that's why I personally can see Pedro getting the win in this fight here. I just think that he's going to be a little bit better all-rounder. James Barnes, you cannot really overlook this guy. I do understand that he is going to be 40 years old coming into the fight, which is pretty old for a bantamweight. He's also going to be a bit longer than Pedro as well, 5'8" compared to the 5'4". He's got the black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got the world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. I think I saw that he was in a South American Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu team or something like that when I was doing a little bit of research on him. But I think that it's going to be Pedro Falcao's time here. He's only 29 years old, and I can actually see him, although he's got that black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I think that he could actually find the chin of James Barnes and knock him out. But just I'm going to let it be known that I don't want to overlook James Barnes, but my pick is Pedro Falcao. I think he gets it done inside the distance. I would assume ground and pound TKO or maybe a KO on the feet. It is worth noting though that Pedro Falcao, he has actually had a lot of fights at featherweight. This fight is taking place at bantamweight at 135. So he's going to have to cut a little bit of extra weight, but I don't think that should be too much of a problem. He has fought at bantamweight before. James Barnes has fought at bantamweight pretty much his whole career. In fact, he came in under the 135 mark in his last fight. A lot of people picking Falcao, and I think maybe that could be because James Barnes is 39 years old, And yeah, James Barnes, if he gets the job done, I would definitely pick him by submission. Falcao gets the job done. A lot of people not picking the submission, but he does have that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I would go with the KO as well. I can see Falcao finding the chin of James Barnes, but we could see a decision win as well, just a ground and pound wrestling based submission from Pedro as well. We'll just have to see kind of what happens really, but that's my official prediction. I've got Pedro Falcao in the first fight of the night.